We're really excited about today's conversation, using candidate and employee feedback to optimize and evolve virtual hiring. So I'd like to introduce Jason Moreau, CEO of Surveill, who will be moderating the talk. Please enjoy. On the right side, you'll see the chat panel with a separate tab that says session. That's where you can ask any questions in the session here. And I will also be posting the LinkedIn group link where you can ask conversation starters questions after the conference and keep the convo going.
All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you, Jenna. And thank you, Tony, for joining us today. This is our first online conference, and actually it's pretty exciting. So what we're bringing to you today is what Surveill does. We are a feedback platform, from candidate feedback through employee feedback. And basically the feedback platform gives you insights, diagnostics into how to optimize and evolve your hiring process, your ongoing employee experiences, to just provide better retention, easier hiring, build your pipeline, enhance your employer brand. So with us today, we have Tony Suzda, Senior Manager, Talent Acquisition and Strategy at Dent Wizard, and Jenna Van Winkle with the Candidate Experience Specialist for Workiva. And both of them have been running Surveill's platform pre-COVID, and they continue to run it during COVID. And then obviously now they're going to talk a bit about how they used it pre-COVID to get insights, actionable insights into their candidate feedback and optimizing their talent acquisition process, as well as Jenna in particular has had to go real time and make adjustments because of all the virtual hiring now. And in Tony's case, he's making adjustments, getting ready for the rehire and the work from home kind of scenarios and online hiring. So with Surveill, we view the feedback process starting at your career site, so the first interaction with candidates, anonymous job seekers, and trying to understand your digital experience as the anonymous job seeker, maybe understand a little bit about our brand. And then as candidates apply to positions and candidates are going through those different talent acquisition stages like phone screens, interviews, offers, declined offers, onboarding, Surveill is tasked to go out and gather feedback automatically through the integration of your applicant tracking system. The third area where we focus on is post-hire, so understanding what onboarding looks like at 5 days, 30 days, ongoing new hire feedback, hiring manager satisfaction with the new hires, and internal satisfaction with the talent acquisition team and the hiring managers. And then we move into our fourth and final module, which is ongoing employee experience. So, this is more driven off of hire date, anniversary dates, some ad hoc transactional surveys that would go out, for example, like how's working from home treating you right now? Do you have all the tools and all that kind of stuff? So really understanding wellness in that sense. So with that, I want to turn it over now to Jenna, first off, and ask Jenna, if you can just kind of give us some background about how you use candidate feedback pre-COVID, some of the insights that you use, and then shifting into now that COVID hit, we're all working from home, understanding how you had to pivot and adjust and gather feedback, because it's so critical right now that, things have changed. All of our hiring stages still remain the same, like phone screens and interviews, but the way we perform them now has drastically been disrupted and different. So welcome, Jenna and Tony. And Jenna, if you could just
I'll give a little layout of what Workiva originally set up our Surveill platform and integrate it with our ATS. So we have 4 main stages of interviews for candidates. First is on the career site. There's a pop-up window that comes up, and before they even apply as a candidate, we just get a feel for a 2-minute survey, probably a 30-second survey. It's really short, asking them about their experience thus far. And then we go into, once they then become an applicant or a candidate in our system, there's 3 more potential surveys that could be triggered. One fires to them after they've had an interaction with the recruiter through their phone screen. One fires to them after they've had an interaction with the hiring team. And then the third one that could potentially fire to them from our ATS is if they decline an offer. We currently have a decline offer survey out there as well. We leverage Surveill outside of the candidate experience. We do a lot of additional surveys to our employees, specifically interns. Our intern program uses it quite a bit, both to the managers and the intern. So we have a little bit more experience with Surveill than beyond just the candidate experience as well, kind of like Jason mentioned in the previous slide. As far as that's how we had it set up originally. We had to integrate it with our ATS. I had the fortunate privilege, we'll say, of launching a brand new ATS in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. And so we transitioned from JobVite to Workday in the midst of March, lo and behold. And so flowing over to that, I will say our post-COVID or during COVID adjustments, fortunately, didn't have to be a ton other than really system changes. But I will point out two specific things that we considered. One, we did an audit of our surveys to make sure that the language around their interactions with the hiring team and their interactions, maybe in the post-offer survey, anything that might have pointed to or alluded to the fact that they were on site, traveling, anything like that, make sure that it was really generalized so that it just included, based on your interaction with the hiring team versus based on your recent on-site interview, for example. So maybe a couple tweaks to the language. So that's one thing that we had to just look at and audit. Fortunately, we were in a place where a lot of our interviewers don't ever come on site. And so we felt like a lot of our language already aligned and was generalized enough that we didn't have to make a whole ton of changes. The second piece that I would say we're actually in flight right now is actually adding an ad hoc survey. We want to capture really, because of this interesting time, we want to capture that real-time information from our candidates that are in the midst of being candidates during COVID time of how they're feeling. Do they feel like they're getting the responses they needed? We recently talked in a team meeting yesterday that we really feel like candidates are hungry for feedback when you reject them right now, like kind of hungrier than normal. They're feisty for jobs right now. And so being able to integrate that sense that our recruiters are having with, okay, let's put that into a survey and roll it out to anyone who's applied starting March 1, 2020 to present day. We're building that right now and just getting an additional touch point with those candidates.
Wow, that's fantastic. What's the biggest insight that you, like the biggest deliverable or actionable insight that you can kind of point to? I don't know, I'm kind of throwing you on the spot there, but I know for our clients, their most actionable areas are usually, I hate to throw the hiring managers on the bus, but it's usually about hiring managers. But,
those are good ones. I will say my favorite ones to get our offers declined. I feel like we don't get a ton of those. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of offers declined, but then, there's even fewer that actually complete that survey. But I do feel like that's really valuable information. We have a multi-select question in there about maybe factors that they considered when not accepting our offer. And so I can forward that off to our benefits team. And there's an open comments box too. So we can get a little bit more like, hey, we got you all the way to the end and it was declined. What happened? And that can help with some of our pre-close conversations.
Right.
I would say that's first and foremost. Second would be my hiring team ones. Because it is real time, we can actually catch maybe some hiccups in the hiring team interviews mid-flight. And maybe before they have the next interaction with a candidate, we can say, hey, we heard that 6 hours might be a little too long for an on-site. Let's cut that down a bit. And we're getting that feedback. And they receive it better when they're seeing it on a survey than just what the recruiters think. So it's been really insightful.
Right. Well, that's awesome. And then have you been able to make some good adjustments like from the decline?
Yeah,
offers,
I think it's definitely building our arsenal for things we kind of assumed we needed to change. We have a pretty good insight as to think benefits that our employees currently want. And to know that is some of the same reasons that we're getting candidates declining offers, and bringing that back to our benefits team, for example, is one that comes up a lot. It's really valuable. It's not only, hurting potentially our retention of existing employees, but that's echoed in the thoughts and sentiments of the candidates that are applying and not accepting positions with us.
Right. Well, and I know one of the factors that the candidates are probably not rejecting you for is your office space. For anyone on this call, Jenna, you guys are in Des Moines, Iowa, right? And we've been to their office space, and it is probably the best office space I've ever been to. Nearly a professional gym in there, and gymnasium, and the yoga classes, and kitchens, and it's really phenomenal. So, I mean, that must be a challenge right now during your hiring process to be able to demonstrate what a fantastic place to work.
Yeah, no video or any virtual interview can really capture the feel of walking into our headquarters or any of our other offices that, they still have just an intangible value to them that I think the Workiva culture really tries to host. And so, yeah, I mean, especially some of our high-end clients, we make a point to bring them to our headquarters, and we don't have that value right now to really demonstrate like, hey, this is what we're about. And our building here says a lot about that. So we're definitely missing that.
Yeah. That's great. Wow. Yes. And it'll come back. Well, thanks, Jenna. Hey, Tony. Tony is with Dent Wizard, and Tony actually, we were supposed to be at your offices, I believe, next week or something. Yeah. And obviously, we've all now gone your workshop virtual now, but Tony has been running Surveill now for a few years as well, same as Workiva and Jenna. And Tony, you have some amazing stories of like actionable insights that have been uncovered and throughout the hiring process, and then maybe you can talk a bit about some of that and share some stories, as well as maybe you can share about how you're preparing for kind of the go back to work and what actionable insights you're going to
so for us, we implemented Surveill very early on when I was looking at all new technology for Dent Wizard. I was lucky enough to meet Jason at a industry event for a applicant tracking system that we were launching. And I think I was speaking at that one or whatnot. And we started just kind of talking about how we could get data. I'm really big on data. I want more of it all the time. And that's what I love about Surveill. I mean, it's unlimited amounts of data, and it's all really valuable. And so to start off, for some of it was the system. We implemented a brand new system. For us, it was JobVite, was the ATS. And we implemented a brand new system, but we didn't have new processes and anything so everything was brand new to us. And so as we developed processes with managers and with the system and the application, we started to realize that we had sticking points, we had bottlenecks, and the survey was the best way to find out where our candidates were getting stuck in the system and where they felt like they weren't getting the value. From something as small as, our application had, some amount, a lot of little fields you needed to fill out. And, people telling us, why do you need to know all this stuff? And I really kind of went back on my, history. And I said, you're right. Why do we need it? If it doesn't matter to us, then why do we need it? And so, I went and I started asking the question to managers. I said, why do we care where somebody went to high school, where, what GPA they had? I said, if it really comes down to education, and this is just one example, what's the most important? And they said, well, what's the highest level of education? Well, great. We can get rid of 15 boxes and put one drop down that says, what's your highest level of education completed, and done. And so we got all these different ideas and from our candidates to streamline and make the process better, which ultimately enhanced the candidate experience. Yeah. So that was one instance. And then obviously, as Jason pointed out, it's, working with our managers, not to put all the blame on the managers, but I mean, come on, if you work in recruiting or HR, that's, they're the problem. But you get managers who, especially in our business where, they're new, maybe they haven't managed people before. And so you start to learn little things about them and the experience that they're giving, like, they're not giving feedback, or they're looking at their phone. I bring that up at meetings all the time, because I'm like, guys, you can't believe how many people say they don't feel like they got a great experience because of how many times you looked at your phone. And that really resonates with them. So we're able to give, pointed peer-to-peer feedback on exactly what they're doing wrong, exactly what they're doing right, which has been very valuable to us as well. And then, again, just understanding things like brand affinity. That's something I love to look at. It's a question we ask on all our surveys, and, we kind of We see it throughout. And so we ask people, like, from the always on survey, what do you think of Dent Wizard? And then I love going back and seeing the survey later down the line where they've talked to us and they were like, oh, Dent Wizard's great. They didn't know anything about us. And then once they learn, they're like, wow, I really want to work here. I love the brand. This is something that I would entice people to look at. And so that's a really cool metric to also see.
That's really interesting. You talk about brand, Tony. I like to say, advise our clients to say, ask that kind of very similar question. What's your perception of us as an employer now that you've been on our career site, now that you've been through a phone screen, now that you've been through an interview? At each of those stages, asking that question and see how your brand metrics change throughout all those little stages. Because let's face it, like, your employer brand, what that number one responsibility of your employer brand is building your pipeline, right? Like, that's what your employer brand equals, your pipeline, and your pipeline equals your cost of recruiting. Like, the bigger the pipeline, the lower the cost to recruit, probably attracting better talent. So that's why we care about our employer brand, and asking it throughout the stages, we'll understand where you need to go diagnose and say, oh, look, I got 4 hiring managers that are ruining our employer brand. It's nothing to do with these technologies, and it's nothing to do with our talent acquisition team. But, it only takes 1 or 2 hiring managers that can really end up on Glassdoor and ruin your brand and your scores. The higher the score, easier to recruit. The lower the score, well, everything, you're paying more salaries to attract people. So that's kind of why I like to sprinkle that kind of question in to really get an understanding. And then,
it's funny. If we were in a room, I'd ask these 23 people, who here loves to save money, and everybody would raise their hand, I'm sure. But the reason I bring that up is, we put a huge investment into the branding at the end of last year, and having the data that we had from Surveill, understanding how people view our brand, how they view our processes, what they wanted to see more of, videos that we've just done and are going live on our website. That's all because of data that we were able to collect. And if you've worked with one of these branding companies, they'll charge you for all that data, to go out and get all that. So we already had that just based on, already asking the questions. So.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Great story. And then, Tony, as you start thinking about, return to work, and, some of this is going to be remote, like, I mean, it disrupts some of those stages, those hiring stages. Are you making plans to, like, adjust the questions that you're asking candidates?
We'll definitely have to see how it goes. Unfortunately, the automotive industry hasn't quite, it's starting. It really is. This week, actually, I'm seeing a significant increase in our recruiting. So thankfully, starting to go that way. But I am seeing, some managers are able to meet with people on site. Some are having to do FaceTimes and things like that. So we will have to kind of adjust the questions on the experience that they're getting, because we care so much about that. I mean, Jason, I'm a huge candidate experience guy. And so, we are going to have to adjust our questions. And I think it'll be an evolving tool for us. I mean, it's funny because it's been so static for the last few years because it's just worked, but we've had that same process. So now we're going into a time where we will have to adjust and, just rely on the team there to help us. And, I'm confident that it'll be just as good and help us just as much as it has these past few years.
Yeah. So, hey, you guys, there's a question here from Eddie Liu. How would feedback affect the process of hiring? Do you get feedback from employers, recruiters? So I'll just sprinkle in my 2 cents first. But we do get feedback from candidates, the employer, the recruiters. Internally, recruiters and hiring managers on the new hires, candidates on managers in their interviews, candidates giving feedback about the phone screen. It basically becomes this full, transparent interaction. Any interaction you have with a candidate, whether it's technology or human interaction, you really need to be asking, how was that experience? And more importantly than ever right now, I think, as you're going through offers, you're doing your virtual offers, your virtual interviews, the onboarding of these new employees, it's happening over these video calls now. And it's going to be more important than ever to understand what that experience is like. Did you have the equipment? Was your manager there to help you? And, like, are you getting enough time and attention from your peers? So I'll turn that question over to you, Jenna. Do you think, did you read Eddie's question there? And
yeah, so beyond just our candidate-facing surveys, we definitely interview our hiring managers in two ways. One, we hire them right after the actual offer is accepted, and we ask them about their interaction with talent acquisition. Did it go as expected? Did it meet their needs? Was communication impactful? Quite a variety of items to help us with some of our recruiter KPIs. And then additionally, we do a 60-day survey after the start date of that candidate, asking, would you hire them again? Are they meeting expectations in these 5 areas, meeting, exceeding, or not satisfied? And so it's great. It carries on beyond just the candidate experience, but really the candidate experience is that, right? It's still an onboarding, and the hiring manager plays a big role in that. So definitely important to get more than just the candidate's feedback.
Yeah. Great. So I can't remember, do either one of you have net promoter scores carved out for each individual recruiter and net promoter scores for each individual manager, division? So Surveill can carve out, like, everyone should be walking around with their net promoter score. I'm TA and my net promoter score is a 60. I'm the hiring manager, my net promoter score is a 40. I'm with this division and our overall division is a 56. Like, the system breaks that down, and it really makes it very transparent who's performing and who's not performing. Are either?
Yeah, and I'll add, we're actually doing against our entities as well. So we look at Workiva US versus Workiva Netherlands and UK and Asia Pacific to see, like, what area of the business, what business of Workiva is slacking. But yeah, benchmarking across departments is huge, and then we do the KPIs for recruiters as well. We put an NPS for each recruiter on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, that's great. I'll give you one little story there. Another one of our clients they operate in America, EMEA, APAC, and India. And in one of the regions, they were struggling, attracting talent. They were struggling when they did bring talent in. People were rejecting the offers. Basically their brand was just completely out of whack from the other 3 regions. And really quickly, within Surveill, we said, well, let's just jump in and take a look at the interview feedback and take a look at their phone screen feedback. And the phone screens with the talent acquisition teams in all the regions were fantastic. And then in the one region that was having problems, it was basically came down to 3 managers. And the feedback, like, not just from one candidate, from multiple candidates, were saying they're late, they're unprepared, they're just disengaged. And so the company has went back and basically retrained these managers. And within 6 months, that one region's brand was up to par and outperforming some of the other regions. So is that the kind of stuff that you're looking at there, Jenna and Tony?
Yeah. I mean, for us, we're really looking at, between divisions, zones, kind of, different managers, different groups. What's important for us. So just very much smaller.
Yeah, that the human interaction can really change things. So I'm just wondering if there's any more questions. I can see, I know we're running up against time here. We've already gone almost 25 minutes. Is there any more questions here? What are some good strategies for injecting human element or touch point into a new remote distributed hiring process?
I just wanted this video. I mean, this is we just started working. DentWizard was bought by another company a little while ago, and it was funny because that company didn't ever use video, and we have Teams, and so it's funny. We went from being on the phone to, like, every meeting I had, I was like on Teams, and I'm like, log in your video. I want to see your face. And, and now all these managers have caught on, and I'm kind of pushing that into the field with our managers is I'm like, we give you iPhones, use FaceTime. Everybody has an iPhone. Or we've talked about, like, WhatsApp, so that if you're cross platforms, being able to video chat with people. And it's been very, very helpful. And, we've gotten great feedback about, wow, even though we can't get face to face with somebody, because sometimes we also have managers in Syracuse, New York, hiring for a guy in, Secaucus, New Jersey. I mean, that's a long distance away. So just being able to do that interview face to face over the phone has really helped out. So something video is the way to go. That's what I would.
I would just take it one step further with video. I would say, not being in the office, you lose that human office interaction and that element of just like the water cooler talk. So I think really being intentional as a team and as a hiring manager, or as from recruiters, training our hiring leaders to encourage like team gatherings, team huddles, just like office chat. It's really easy to get into video meeting mode and just be like, okay, what's our agenda? Agenda's done, meeting adjourned, and hop off. And for any of those employees new and onboarding in this virtual environment, they need that that small talk. That's how they start to feel a part of something. So don't be afraid to schedule, quote, pointless meetings or happy hours or team bonding or whatever, so they can get some of that, what they would get at their desk or in their pod in the regular work environment.
That's probably huge. Really helps try to bring that culture, right? That's difficult. Because I know, Jenna, you guys probably had some happy hours at the office.
We still celebrate Beer 30. We just do it virtually. So yeah, trying to bring the office element back home still.
Yeah, it's so important to get some of that culture still, right? And I think this is about the only way I can see that you can do that right now is doing that. And I love the idea of non-scheduled meetings or no agenda meetings. This is like it's a culture meeting, I guess.
I will say we had one other thing take me 30 seconds is also we started doing some videos of virtual workspace. So, because our guys work in the field and stuff, we had some managers go out and just take some video that we can then send and say, this is virtually where you'll be working when you can come to work. This is the water cooler, this is your lunchroom, this is the cube, this is the lot you'll be working on, this is the vehicle. So it seemed helpful. A lot of people responded well to that.
Yeah. So I'll give you another last little story and we'll wrap up. But one of our clients is doing an employee experience survey. So they're a technology company and all of their staff right now are work from home. And they sent out a survey to their colleague or to their peers, asking them, how well do you think the company's handling this situation, this COVID situation? How are you mentally feeling? Are you feeling positive, negative? Do you have all the tools that you need to be effective at home, working from home? Like, a desk, as simple as a desk to, do you have a private area and how's your Wi-Fi? I mean, those are some things that sometimes you just get overlooked. All the way to that they're moving into the now, like, well, hey, COVID's not going to be here forever. Post-COVID, would you like to continue to work from home? Are you finding it more productive to work from home? And, prior to COVID, how much time did you work from home? And what they're trying to understand is, we have these massive office spaces that house thousands of employees. Can we potentially reduce some of this office space and turn it into hot seats? So if I want to come into the office once a week, I don't necessarily have my pre-allocated desk anymore. I turn up and I look for the most available desk, and that's where I sit for the day. And so turning it on almost into like a co-working shared office space, but in your private owned company, private cloud, I guess you could say. So anyhow, that's a great example, I think, of like what employers are doing right now in some employee experience and understanding the experience, like the current situation of COVID and how people are adapting. And it's pretty interesting to watch in real time how people are adjusting. So, well, with that, if there's any more questions, feel free. Tony, Jenna, thank you. This was so informative, and I know it's such a short amount of time, but I hopefully, people walk away learning something here, and we can share this video. We just got a thank you here from Whit Walker. Thank you, Whit, and thank you, Nick and Eddie, for the questions. And Jenna and Tony, I know it's you guys are one of you might be in
Eastern Central.
Anyone? Oh yeah, Central. Okay, awesome. thank you very much for joining us and sharing your stories on how you use this data for insights and to adjust your business. So look forward to doing this again. And everyone, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye now.